A Monday morning shower always seemed like the hardest part of the week to Harper Kane. The icy jets helped wash away the remnants of the weekend and get her into work mode. 32 wasn't an age when Mondays should make you feel so down. But even though her job at Tech Fusion had provided a steady income for the past 3 years, it didn't bring her the same satisfaction it used to. Harper was drying her hair with a towel when the phone rang. Seeing her mother's name on the screen made her shoulders tense instantly. "Good morning, Mom," Harper said, trying to sound neutral. "Finally you picked up. I called 4 times yesterday." Elaine Kane's voice dripped with accusation. "Todd is in serious trouble. He needs money." Todd, Harper's younger brother, had a knack for getting into trouble. At 28, he had already had 5 jobs and racked up a debt that Harper tried not to think about. "What is it this time?" Harper wedged the phone between her ear and her shoulder as she pulled on her jeans. "Don't act like this is just another one of his stunts," Elaine exclaimed. "He invested in a promising startup, but they need a little more funding to—" "Mom, we've been through this before," Harper said, trying to control her voice. "Last time it was a promising cryptocurrency project, and before that it was an investment in a friend who was opening a bar." "You've always been so heartless. Todd is a creative person. He needs time to find himself." Harper closed her eyes and slowly counted to 5. "How much does he need?" 4,000. "But if you can give 5, that would be ideal." "Mom, I can't." "Of course you can. You work for a tech company, you make good money, and you live alone. What do you spend it on anyway?" "On therapy to deal with you and Todd," Harper thought, but said aloud, "Let's talk about this tonight. I have to get to work." "You're always too busy when it comes to family." Elaine's voice trembled with righteous indignation. "I'll call you tonight," Harper said firmly and ended the call. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. Deep breath, shoulders back. Monday was just beginning. Tech Fusion was located in a renovated old textile factory on the outskirts of Lawrence. The spacious, open-plan office with high ceilings and brick walls would have looked stylish if it weren't for the outdated office furniture and uneven stacks of documents on the desks. Harper sat down at her computer and turned it on. She was the technical director, without an official title or salary, of a small team of 4 programmers. It was her creation, the DataSync data management system, that had made Tech Fusion profitable 3 years ago. "Good morning, you're early." Noah Finch, a tester and close friend of Harper's, placed a paper cup of coffee in front of her. "Thanks." Harper took a sip. "Perfect. I had a call from my mother and had to get up early." "Todd again?" Noah knew the whole story. "When is it ever different?" Harper opened her email. "Anything important over the weekend?" "Rumors." Noah lowered his voice. "They say Abbott has found a replacement for Doris." Doris Cheng, Tech Fusion's former CTO, had resigned a month ago. Owen Abbott, the company's owner, had been personally overseeing the development department ever since, without getting too involved in the details and relying on Harper. "And who is it?" Harper scanned her inbox. "No idea, but Marlene from accounting says it's some relative of Abbott's." Harper frowned. "That's all we need. Nepotism is the last thing the company needs. You should have gotten that job." Noah leaned against the partition. "Everyone knows it." "Apparently, not everyone," Harper shrugged. "I don't have the right last name." By 10 o'clock, the office was full. Rachel and Jasper, the other developers on the team, settled at their desks. Owen Abbott appeared, a heavy-set man in his 50s wearing an immaculate suit. He was accompanied by a young man who looked like he had just stepped out of a glossy magazine. "Attention, everyone gather in the conference room in 10 minutes, Abbott announced. The team exchanged glances. Impromptu meetings usually didn't bode well. "I'll bet $20 that's the new boss," Noah whispered, nodding toward the stranger. The conference room quickly filled up. Harper sat down next to Noah, watching Abbott explain something animatedly to his companion. The young man nodded with a confident smile, not paying attention to the details. "Good morning, team," Abbott began when everyone had gathered. "I have some great news. Let me introduce you to Griffin Reed, our new technical director." A muffled whisper rippled through the room. Harper felt Noah squeeze her hand under the table. Griffin Reed looked to be no more than 35. His dark hair was perfectly styled, he wore an expensive suit, and he had the smile of a man who was used to getting what he wanted. "It's nice to meet you all." His voice sounded as polished as his appearance. "I've heard a lot about Tech Fusion, and I'm confident that together we will reach new heights." Abbott beamed. Griffin has extensive experience in the technology sector. He previously worked at Next Gen Solutions in Boston, and just as importantly, Griffin is my sister's son. Noah rolled his eyes. Harper kept a neutral expression. "I have a vision for how to modernize our processes and take us to the next level," Reed continued. "In the coming days, I will be meeting with each of you individually to better understand your roles and responsibilities." After the meeting, Harper returned to her desk with a heavy heart. A new boss who was the owner's nephew and had no experience in their narrow field of expertise did not bode well. "What do you think?" Noah asked, sitting down on the edge of her desk. "Another manager who will tell programmers how to write code without understanding the difference between Java and JavaScript," Harper muttered. "Hey, don't judge him so quickly." Rachel, always ready to see the best in people, joined the conversation. "Maybe he'll turn out to be okay." "Maybe?" Harper didn't share her optimism. "But I doubt he knows what data sync is and why it's important to the company." "He'll find out." Jasper rolled over in his chair. "You'll explain it to him." Harper smiled. Her team believed in her, and that gave her strength. After lunch, an email arrived from Griffin Reed. He had scheduled a meeting with Harper for 4 o'clock. It was her first day, and he was already taking action. At 4 o'clock, Harper knocked on the door of the office that had previously belonged to Doris. The walls were bare. The former director's photographs and diplomas were gone. Griffin Reed was sitting at a large desk, looking at something on his tablet. "Come in, Miss Kane." He gestured to the chair opposite him. "Have a seat." "Just Harper," she said, sitting down with her back straight. "All right, Harper." Reed smiled. "I've studied the company structure and see that you play a significant role in the development of our key product." "DataSync is a system I developed 3 years ago." Harper nodded. "It's the company's main source of income." "Impressive," Reed said, flipping through a few pages on his tablet. "However, I've noticed that maintaining this system takes a lot of resources." "Every system requires support and updates," Harper replied. "But the return on investment—" Yes, I've seen the numbers," Reed interrupted. "But I think we can optimize the process. Cut costs, increase profits." "How?" "For starters, I think we're overstaffed." Reed tapped his fingers on the table. 4 developers to support one system is a lot." Harper felt her neck muscles tense. "DataSync isn't just one system. It's a complex solution with multiple modules and integrations. Each team member is responsible for their own area." "And yet," Reed leaned back in his chair, "in today's economic climate, we need to be more efficient. I've researched the market, and there are freelancers willing to do the work for less money." "Freelancers don't know the system like we do," Harper objected. "It takes months to fully understand DataSync." "Isn't there documentation for that?" Reed raised an eyebrow. "Or did you not document your code properly?" The jab was accurate. The documentation existed, but it was not comprehensive. In a startup, there was never enough time. "The documentation is there, but no instructions can replace personal experience with the system," Harper tried to say calmly. Reed nodded in agreement. "That's exactly why we need to rethink our approach. Maybe it's time to upgrade DataSync or even replace it with a more modern solution." "Replace it?" Harper didn't hide her surprise. "DataSync isn't just working. It's making money. Why change something that isn't broken?" "To keep up with the competition," Reed said, as if explaining the obvious to a child. "In technology, you always have to be one step ahead." "Do you have a specific proposal?" Harper asked. "I have a few ideas," Reed replied evasively. "But first, I need to better understand the current situation. Tell me about the patent protection for DataSync." The question caught Harper off guard. Not many people asked about patents right away. "The system is patented," she replied cautiously. "All rights reserved." "Excellent," Reed made a note. "And the patent belongs to Tech Fusion, I presume?" Harper hesitated. This was a tricky moment. Not exactly. The patent is in my name, but the company has an exclusive license to use the technology. Reed looked up from his tablet. Excuse me? When I developed DataSync, the company couldn't afford to pay for the patent, Harper explained. I filed the patent under my name and we entered into a licensing agreement. It was approved by the previous management. And you get royalties? Reed frowned. Minimal, Harper confirmed. It was part of my compensation package. Reed rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Interesting situation. I'll have to look into these documents. Of course they're in the legal department, Harper nodded. Everything is in order. I'm sure it is. Reed smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Well, I think that's enough for today. Thanks for the information, Harper. She stood up, feeling that the conversation had not ended as she would have liked. If you have any questions about the system, I'm always here to help. I'll be sure to let you know, Reed said, returning to his tablet, signaling that the meeting was over. Returning to her desk, Harper found that most of the employees had already left. Only Noah was still working. How did it go? He asked, seeing the look on her face. I'm not sure, Harper replied honestly. He asked a lot about the patent. That shouldn't be a problem. Everything is legally documented. Noah shrugged. I know, but I have a bad feeling about this. Harper glanced toward Reed's office. He mentioned staff cuts and replacing DataSync. On your first day? Seriously? Noah shook his head. That's why I hate the corporate world. Let's see what happens, Harper said, gathering her things. Maybe it's just talk. The next day, the atmosphere in the office had changed. Griffin Reed held individual meetings with each member of the team. By the end of the day, everyone was tense and exchanging worried glances. He asked if I could work with systems other than DataSync, Rachel reported at lunch. And he asked how dependent my code is on your modules, Harper. He asked me similar questions. Jasper nodded. It seems like he's gathering information for a major reorganization. By Thursday, rumors of upcoming layoffs had spread throughout the office. No one could concentrate on their work. Harper tried to calm the team, but she herself felt a growing sense of anxiety. On Friday morning, Harper found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a letter asking her to come to Reed's office at 9:30. She glanced at her watch. She had 20 minutes left. What's that? Noah asked, noticing the envelope. An invitation to my execution, Harper joked grimly. At 9:30, she knocked on Reed's office door. He wasn't alone. There was also someone from HR, a bad sign. Have a seat, Harper, Reed said, pointing to a chair. She sat down, bracing herself for the worst. After a thorough analysis of the company's structure, I have decided to reorganize, Reed began. Unfortunately, your position is being eliminated. Despite her expectations, the words still hit her like a slap in the face. You're firing me? I prefer the term staff optimization, Reed said, handing her a folder. Here are all the documents and information about your severance pay. The company will pay compensation in accordance with your employment contract. Harper took the folder, still in disbelief. What about DataSync? Who will maintain the system? We've hired a consultant to help with the transition to the new platform, Reed explained. We plan to completely update our technology solutions within a month. A month? Harper shook her head. That's impossible. DataSync is a complex system integrated with all of the company's processes. Technology evolves. Reed smiled, his empty smile again. Modern solutions are often simpler and more effective than older ones. What about the license agreement? Harper asked. I still own the patent. Our lawyers have reviewed the contract, the HR representative interjected. The company has the right to use the system after you leave. Use it, but not modify it without my consent, Harper clarified. We'll discuss the details with your lawyer if necessary. Reed cut her off. Right now, it's important to make the transition as smooth as possible. Harper took a deep breath. And who should I hand over my work to? Who will be responsible for the system after I leave? We've already hired someone. Reed glanced at his watch. He'll be here on Monday. For today, I'd like you to clear your desk by the end of the day. Today? Harper didn't hide her indignation. Without a handover period? That's not necessary. Reed looked unperturbed. All the necessary documentation is in the system. Harper clenched the folder so tightly that her knuckles turned white. "You're making a huge mistake." "Don't take it personally, Harper." Reed leaned back in his chair. "We'll just replace you with someone cheaper. Business is business." She stared at him, unable to believe her ears. 3 years of work, creating a system that had brought the company millions, and just like that, we'll replace you with someone cheaper. "Thanks for the warning," she finally said in a calm voice that surprised even herself. Reed frowned slightly, not expecting such a reaction. "Security will escort you to your desk so you can gather your personal belongings." Harper stood up. "That won't be necessary. I can find my way to my desk." "Those are the rules." Reed shrugged. A security guard was waiting outside the door. It was humiliating to gather her things under surveillance while her colleagues cast sympathetic glances her way. Harper put a few photos, a mug, and some notebooks into a cardboard box. Noah approached, ignoring the security guard. "What's going on?" "I've been fired," Harper replied. "The new boss decided he could replace me with someone cheaper." "That's crazy." Noah lowered his voice. "Data sync won't last long without you." "I guess they'll find out," Harper said, closing the box. "I'll call you later." She walked through the office with her head held high. No public farewell, no sentimentality. Just a box of her belongings and a security guard behind her, as if she were a criminal. In the parking lot, Harper put the box in the trunk and got behind the wheel. Only when the car started moving did she allow herself to smile. Griffin Reed had no idea what he had just gotten himself into. He didn't know that the software patent on which the company depended belonged to her. And he certainly didn't know that his words about cheaper would come back to haunt him. Leaving the Tech Fusion parking lot, Harper glanced at her watch. It was Friday, 11 in the morning, the start of a very long day for Griffin Reed. Harper dropped the box of her things in the hallway of her apartment and headed straight for the kitchen. The coffee maker hummed, filling the space with its familiar aroma. Normally, she would be at the office at this time, discussing tasks with her team or immersed in code. It was a strange feeling to be home in the middle of the workday. With a steaming cup of coffee in her hand, Harper walked into the living room and sank onto the sofa. The walls of the apartment, which rarely saw daylight, seemed unusually bright. 3 years at Tech Fusion, and now it was all over. She took a sip of coffee, her mind returning to Reed's words. "We're replacing you with someone cheaper." Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Noah. "How are you?" he asked instead of saying hello. "Fine, surprisingly fine," Harper replied, surprised at her own calmness. "How's the atmosphere there?" "Everyone's in shock. Reed called a town hall meeting and announced a technological transformation. He says the company is switching to some kind of ready-made platform instead of data sync." "In a month?" Harper scoffed. "Good luck with that." "Exactly." Noah lowered his voice. "Abbott doesn't seem to understand anything. He just nods at everything that Clown says. Reed has already scheduled a meeting for us with representatives from TechSphere. They sell something similar to our system, but it's a ready-made solution." "TechSphere?" Harper frowned. "Never heard of them." "I Googled them," Noah continued. "They've only been around for a year, and guess who's on the board of directors?" "Let me think." Harper leaned back on the couch. "Isn't that Griffin Reed's former boss from Next Gen Solutions?" "Bingo!" Noah exclaimed. "They're obviously trying to sell us their half-baked solution, and without you, no one will be able to explain why it's a bad idea." Harper paused, thinking about the situation. "Noah, do you remember what happened 2 months ago with the customer database? When it crashed?" "Of course I remember. We didn't sleep for 36 hours restoring it." "And do you remember what I did to the code then?" "You added an extra layer of security and automatic backup," Noah replied. "And also, wait, you're not talking about that hidden mechanism, are you?" Harper smiled. "Exactly. I built in a license authentication check. The system will only work if you have a valid activation key, which is updated every 30 days. And the next update? Next Friday," Harper finished for him. "I always updated it manually. I just didn't tell anyone. I considered it an extra security measure." "Damn, Harper." Noah couldn't hide his admiration. So in a week, data sync, we'll stop working, she confirmed, and no one but me will be able to activate it. You're a genius, Noah laughed. But is that legal? Absolutely, Harper replied confidently. I own the patent, and the company has a license to use it. The agreement clearly states that I provide technical support for the system. If they fire me, who will renew the license? They'll try to bypass the protection, Noah warned. Good luck to them. Harper took a sip of coffee. The protection code is encrypted with my personal key. Without it, they'll be weeks figuring out what's going on. What are you going to do next? Nothing for now. Harper stood up and walked over to the window. Let them come to me. Reed needs to understand the price of his words. After ending the call, Harper opened her laptop. She found the folder with the data sync backups and delved into the code, refreshing her memory of the system's details. 3 years ago, when she first joined Tech Fusion, the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Outdated technology and inefficient processes. Everything needed to change. Harper remembered her first meeting with Doris Cheng, the then CTO. Unlike Griffin Reed, Doris was a professional and instantly recognized the potential of Harper's ideas. We need a completely new data management system, Harper said at the time, from scratch. The company doesn't have the resources for that, Doris replied. I can develop it, Harper offered. But I have one condition. The patent will be in my name. Doris thought long and hard before agreeing. I'll talk to Abbott, but we can only offer you a licensing agreement and minimal royalties. That's fair, Harper nodded. It's important to me that my intellectual property is protected. 6 months of hard work later, data sync was ready. The system exceeded all expectations. The company began to emerge from the crisis and attract new customers. Abbott was thrilled, Doris got a promotion, and Harper got a modest bonus and a promise of a salary review in the future. For 3 years, Harper improved the system, added new features, and fixed bugs. And all that time, the patent remained her only insurance against corporate injustice. As it turned out, it was worth it. The phone rang again, interrupting her memories. Her mother's name appeared on the screen. Harper sighed, gathering her strength. Hi, Mom. You promised to call tonight. Elaine immediately went on the offensive. I was waiting for your call. I'm sorry. I had a difficult day. Harper didn't want to tell her about being fired yet. How's Todd? It's getting worse and worse. Elaine's voice trembled. He could lose his apartment if he doesn't pay the rent by Monday. Have you thought about what I asked you to do? Harper closed her eyes. On any other day, she would have made up an excuse, said she couldn't afford it. But today, things were different. Her severance pay plus unused vacation time gave her some financial freedom. How much does he need? She asked wearily. 4,000, Elaine repeated. But better make it 5 so he has a little extra. I can give you 4, Harper replied. And that's the last time, Mom. I mean it. Oh, Harper, you're such a good daughter, Elaine exclaimed enthusiastically, instantly changing her tone. Todd will be so grateful. Can you transfer the money today? I can. Harper rubbed her forehead. But on one condition. I want to talk to Todd in person. Why? Elaine asked suspiciously. He's very busy with his new project right now. Either I talk to him or there's no money, Harper said firmly. That's my condition. Elaine reluctantly agreed. 5 minutes later, Harper's phone rang again. This time it was Todd. Hi, sis. His voice sounded nervous. Mom said you wanted to talk to me? Yes, Todd. Harper got straight to the point. I'll help you with the rent, but this is the last time. In exchange, I want you to do something for me. Sure, anything, he agreed hastily. I need your social engineering skills. Harper smiled, remembering how her brother had managed to sneak into private events and talk people into doing the craziest things when they were teenagers. I have a project. Harper briefly outlined the situation without going into technical details. Todd listened with growing interest. So you want me to play along when they start to panic? He clarified. Exactly. You know how to be convincing when you want to be, Harper confirmed. I need you to introduce yourself as a potential client from a large company. Interested, but demanding. And when does this need to happen? Next Friday, Harper replied. I'll give you the exact instructions closer to the date. In the meantime, send me your details, and I'll transfer the money for the rental." After talking to her brother, Harper felt a surge of energy. The plan was starting to take shape. She opened a new document and began to compile a list of actions, outlining every step of her little revenge. The first item was a letter to the lawyer. Harper wasn't sure how far the conflict would go, but she wanted to be prepared for anything. She described the situation in detail, attached copies of the patent documents and license agreement, and asked him to review and prepare possible courses of action. The second item was an analysis of the competitor, TechSphere. Harper spent several hours researching the company, their product, and their connections to Next Gen Solutions, Reed's former employer. As Noah had suspected, everything pointed to collusion. TechSphere had been created by Reed's former colleagues, and their innovative solution was, judging by the description, a primitive version of DataSync without key features. By evening, Harper had finished laying the groundwork for her plan. She created a hidden copy of the DataSync activation code and set the main modules to automatically shut down in exactly 7 days. The system wouldn't crash instantly. That would look like sabotage. Instead, features would fail gradually, giving the impression of technical problems. The final step was to send Noah a message asking him to keep her informed about what was happening at the company. He wasn't just a colleague. He was a true friend, and Harper knew she could rely on him. Closing her laptop, Harper felt tired for the first time that day. The events of the day and the emotional strain all came crashing down on her at once. She went to her bedroom and collapsed onto her bed without even changing her clothes. Sleep wouldn't come. Thoughts about the future swirled in her head. What if the plan didn't work? What if Reed found a way around the protection? What if the company sued her? Harper forced herself to breathe deeply. The patent was on her side. The license agreement had been drafted by a competent lawyer. She hadn't broken any laws. She was simply protecting her intellectual property. Her phone vibrated again. A message from Noah. "Reed just announced that we're starting to test the new system alongside DataSync on Monday. He doesn't even realize how unrealistic that is." Harper smiled and replied, "He'll find out soon enough. Hang in there. Things will change soon." Harper spent Saturday morning doing household chores she usually didn't have time for. Cleaning, laundry, cooking a proper meal instead of the usual semi-prepared meals. It was a strange feeling to have free time and not think about tomorrow's workday. In the evening, she received another message from Noah. "They brought the server for TechSphere. The technicians are trying to set up the system, but they don't have enough information about the data structure. Reed is furious." Harper just shook her head. The DataSync data structure was her own design, unlike typical solutions. Without a detailed analysis, it was virtually impossible to transfer the data to the new platform. On Sunday, Harper met with Todd. They sat in a small cafe on the outskirts of town, far from any place where they might run into anyone from Tech Fusion. "I wrote you a script," Harper handed her brother a folder. "Nothing complicated, just be convincing." Todd glanced through the text. "A potential client interested in a large contract? I like it. When should I show up?" "On Friday," Harper replied. "When they're in a complete panic. I'll let you know." "What if they demand that we return the system?" Todd asked, suddenly serious. "Are you prepared for that?" Harper thought for a moment. "I'm not going to destroy DataSync. I just want them to understand the value of my work. If they offer fair terms, I'll come back. But on my terms." "You've always been stubborn," Todd grinned. "Ever since you were a kid." "So have you," Harper smiled. "The difference is that I channeled my stubbornness into something constructive." "Touché." Todd raised his hands in mock surrender. "All right, I'll help you. After all, I have no choice. You saved my ass with the rent." "And not just that," Harper reminded him. "By the way, what's the startup this time?" Todd perked up unexpectedly. "Actually, it's a really interesting idea. My friend is developing an app for amateur musicians." Harper listened half-heartedly, knowing that this was just another one of her brother's pipe dreams. But something about his enthusiasm made her smile. Maybe it was that inexhaustible desire for something new, even if it was pointless, That had always attracted her to Todd. "Sounds interesting," she said when he finished. "If you decide to turn it into a real business, I can help with the technical side." "Really?" Todd looked surprised. "You've never offered before." "I've never had the time before," Harper shrugged. "Who knows, maybe there's something to it. But first, we need to sort out Tech Fusion." "Of course." Todd squeezed her hand. "Revenge first, business later." They laughed, and for a moment Harper felt the connection they had as children, before life had taken them down different paths, begin to return. On Monday morning, Harper woke up with a strange feeling. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't have to go to the office. She made coffee and settled on the balcony with her laptop. Checking her email, she found a message from her lawyer. He confirmed that the patent and license agreement were entirely on her side. Tech Fusion had the right to use the system, but not to modify it without the author's consent. Most importantly, the company was obligated to pay royalties in accordance with the agreement, even after Harper's dismissal. This was good news. Harper unlocked the data sync code and began making final adjustments to her plan. The system shutdown had to look like a technical glitch, inevitable when trying to integrate with a new platform. No obvious sabotage, just unforeseen circumstances. Over the course of the week, Noah sent regular updates. TechSphere turned out to be exactly what it seemed, an unfinished product with limited functionality. The company's technical specialists struggled with the data transfer, but encountered endless problems. Reed was becoming increasingly nervous and aggressive. "He's getting on everyone's nerves," Noah reported on Thursday. "He yelled at Rachel today for asking too many questions about the new system." "Jasper is thinking about quitting." "Tell them to wait until tomorrow," Harper replied. "I think the situation will change." "What's going to happen tomorrow?" Noah asked. "You'll see," Harper replied mysteriously. "Just be ready for an interesting day." On Thursday evening, Harper checked all the data sync settings. The system was ready to begin gradually shutting down functions starting at 8 a.m. on Friday. The first modules to be affected would be reporting and analytics, not critical for day-to-day operations, but important for management. Then, closer to lunchtime, problems with the user interface would begin. Finally, by the end of the day, the system would completely stop processing new data. Harper closed her laptop and went to the kitchen. She opened a bottle of wine, poured herself a glass, and stepped out onto the balcony. Evening Lawrence spread out before her in lights and shadows. Somewhere out there, at the Tech Fusion office, Griffin Reed was probably still working, trying to speed up the implementation of the new system. He had no idea that tomorrow would be a day of revelation for him. Harper raised her glass as if in a toast. "To patents and plans," she said into the night, taking a sip. Her plan was ready to be executed. Tomorrow, Griffin Reed would learn the true meaning of the phrase, "We'll just replace you with someone cheaper." Harper was ready to take action. Griffin Reed arrived at the Tech Fusion office at 7:30 in the morning. Arriving early had become a habit since his first day as technical director. He loved these quiet morning hours when he could check his email and plan his day in peace before the office filled up with employees. Today, he was in a particularly good mood. Over the past week, he had managed to negotiate with TechSphere to implement their system to replace the outdated data sync. Of course, the data transfer hadn't gone as smoothly as he would have liked, but these were solvable problems. The main thing was that his former boss at NextGen Solutions, now chairman of TechSphere's board of directors, was satisfied. Griffin turned on his computer and opened his email. First, he checked last month's financial report, which should have been generated automatically overnight. Strange, it wasn't in his inbox. He opened DataSync to check the status of the report and frowned when he saw the error message. "Reporting module unavailable. Contact your system administrator." "What the hell?" Griffin muttered. He dialed the internal number for the IT department, but of course no one was there at that early hour. Reed decided not to make a big deal out of it. Technical glitches happen, especially when new systems are being integrated. He switched to other tasks, putting the reporting issue on hold until the specialists arrived. By 9 o'clock, the office was starting to fill up with employees. Griffin noticed Noah Finch, one of the developers on Harper Kane's team, talking animatedly with Rachel and Jasper. They looked concerned. The phone rang. It was Marlene from accounting. "Mr. Reed, we have a problem. The system won't let us generate reports for the tax authorities. The deadline is today." "I've already noticed the problem with the reports," Griffin replied. "Is it working on it?" "Mark just got here. I sent him to look into it right away," Marlene reported, "but he says he's never seen this error before." "Keep me posted." Griffin hung up and called Mark from IT. The young system administrator looked confused when he entered Reed's office. "What's wrong with the system?" Griffin asked without preamble. "I'm not sure, sir." Mark shifted nervously from foot to foot. "It seems that the reporting and analytics modules have stopped responding to requests. I tried restarting the services, but to no avail." "Is this related to the implementation of TechSphere?" Griffin was starting to get annoyed. "I don't think so, sir. TechSphere runs on a separate server. We haven't integrated the systems yet." "Then what's the problem?" I don't know," Mark admitted. "Data sync is a very complex system. Miss Kane used to handle all technical issues." At the mention of Harper's name, Griffin grimaced. He didn't regret his decision to fire her. The company could really save money by hiring a less experienced specialist. But now, faced with his first serious problem, he had to admit that he hadn't thought about transferring knowledge. "Okay, keep working on it," Griffin dismissed Mark. "And keep me posted every hour." Reed spent the next 2 hours trying to calm down the alarmed employees in the accounting and sales departments who couldn't access the necessary reports and analytics. He assured everyone that it was a temporary problem that would be resolved soon. However, closer to 11 o'clock, the situation only got worse. The head of sales, Victor Patterson, literally burst into his office. "Griffin, we have a disaster!" Victor's face was red with excitement. "The customer portal isn't working. We can't give a demonstration of the system to a potential customer." "What customer?" Griffin froze. "Montgomery Industries. We've been working on this contract for 3 months. Their representative arrived today for the final demonstration, and now we can't even log into the system." Griffin jumped up from his desk. "Where is he now?" "In the conference room with Abbott," Victor replied. "They're expecting us with a working system in 10 minutes. "Damn it!" Griffin grabbed the phone and called Mark. "What's the status of the problem?" "It's getting worse, sir." Mark's voice trembled. "Now the user interface is also starting to malfunction." "I don't understand what's happening." "Gather all the technical specialists in the server room," Griffin ordered. "I'll be there in 5 minutes." Hanging up, he turned to Victor. "Think of something. Show them the presentation, old screenshots, anything. I need time to solve this problem." "They want to see the system in action." Victor shook his head. "That's a key requirement." Griffin cursed under his breath and headed for the server room. All available technical specialists had already gathered there, including the development team that remained after Harper's dismissal. Everyone looked confused and helpless. "What's going on?" Griffin demanded. "The system is gradually failing," Noah Finch replied, maintaining a surprising calm. "First, the reporting and analytics modules failed, and now there are problems with the user interface." "Why?" Griffin tried to control his voice, but the tension was breaking through. "What has changed since last week?" Noah and Rachel exchanged glances. "There's one theory," Rachel began cautiously. "Data sync requires regular license key updates. Harper usually took care of that." "License key?" Griffin frowned. "What are you talking about? The system belongs to the company." "Not exactly." Noah met his gaze. "The patent belongs to Harper personally. The company has a license to use it. And that license requires regular updates," Rachel added. "Every 30 days. Why didn't I know about this?" Griffin felt a wave of anger rising inside him. "It's in the documentation," Jasper shrugged. "In the maintenance section." Griffin remembered his conversation with Harper when she mentioned the patent. At the time, he hadn't thought much of it, assuming the company's lawyers had checked everything. Now it was clear that had been a critical mistake. "How do we update that key?" he asked. "Only Harper knows," Noah replied. She set up the security system after that database incident 2 months ago. Damn it! Griffin slammed his fist on the table. Get her here immediately. We've already tried to contact her, Rachel said. She's not answering her phone. At that moment, Owen Abbott entered the server room. His face was red with anger. Reed, what's going on with our system? Montgomery Industries just left. They said they'd contact us when we sorted out our technical problems. Griffin felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Montgomery Industries was potentially Tech Fusion's biggest client in recent years. The contract with them could double the company's revenue. We're working on a solution, Griffin tried to reassure his boss. It seems to be a problem with the license key. What key? Abbott interrupted him. I pay you to keep the systems running. Solve this problem by the end of the day, or you can look for a new job. With that, Abbott stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Griffin glanced around at those present. We need to contact Harper Kane immediately, by any means necessary. I know where she lives, Noah offered unexpectedly. I can give you her address. Great. Griffin looked at his watch. Keep looking for a technical solution here. I'll go to her myself. After getting Harper's address, Griffin rushed to his car. His hands were shaking as he started the engine. The week had started so well, and now everything was falling apart. Montgomery Industries was gone. The systems weren't working. Abbott was furious. And all because of some license key that no one had told him about. On the way to Harper's house, Griffin tried to call her, but to no avail. He left several voicemails, each one sounding more desperate than the last. Harper, this is Griffin Reed. We need to talk about data sync urgently. Please call me back. Harper, we have serious problems with the system. We suspect it's a licensing issue. Please contact me as soon as possible. Harper, I understand that there has been a misunderstanding between us, but the entire company's work is at risk. Please help us. But Harper's phone remained unreachable. Arriving at the address, Griffin rang the doorbell several times. No one answered. He looked through the window. The apartment was dark and quiet. Despair began to take hold of him. Where could she be? How could he find her? At that moment, his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Griffin Reed speaking, he answered hastily. Mr. Reed, this is Todd Kane, Harper's brother. The voice on the other end sounded formal. My sister said you were trying to contact her about a technical problem. Yes, it's extremely important. Griffin didn't hide his relief. I need to talk to her urgently. I understand, Todd replied, but Harper is in a business meeting right now. She asked me to tell you that she is available to discuss your problem, but only at the Bluebird Cafe in an hour. An hour? Griffin couldn't believe his ears. We have a critical system failure. The company is losing clients. I'm just passing on the message, Mr. Reed. Todd's voice remained unperturbed. In an hour at the Bluebird Cafe. If that doesn't suit you, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do. Griffin took a deep breath, holding back his anger. Fine. Tell her I'll be there. The hour of waiting seemed like an eternity to Griffin. He returned to the office to find out how things were going, and the news was only worse. Now the system wasn't processing any transactions at all, effectively paralyzing the company. Customers were calling with complaints, some threatening to terminate their contracts. At the appointed time, Griffin sat at a table in the Bluebird Cafe. Harper appeared right on time. She looked calm and confident, the complete opposite of Griffin's nervous state. Mr. Reed, she nodded, sitting down opposite him. You wanted to see me? Harper. Griffin tried to hide his irritation. Thank you for agreeing to meet. My brother said you were having problems with data sync, Harper said in a businesslike tone without emotion. Something to do with the license key? Yes, the system is completely down. Griffin tried to keep his composure. We can't process transactions, generate reports, nothing. The customer portal is also down. That sounds serious. Harper nodded, showing no concern. This is a disaster. Griffin couldn't hold back. We've already lost Montgomery Industries. Montgomery Industries? Harper feigned surprise. That's potentially your biggest client in years. What a shame. We can fix this if you update the license key, Griffin practically begged. The company is willing to pay you for consulting. Consulting? Harper laughed. Mr. Reed, this problem goes far beyond simple consulting. You fired the creator and owner of the patent for the company's key technology. You violated the terms of the license agreement by attempting to replace DataSync with another system without my consent. And now you're offering me consulting? Griffin paled. What do you want? For starters, an admission that you made a mistake, Harper said, placing her cup on the table. You said you would replace me with someone cheaper. How's that working out for you now? Griffin clenched his teeth. Pride fought with the need to solve the problem. I admit that I underestimated your role in the company and the importance of your work, he finally said. It was a mistake. That's a good start. Harper nodded. What about TechSphere? What about it? Griffin tensed. Are you planning to continue implementing that system? Harper's voice was tinged with sarcasm. That decision has been made by company management, Griffin replied evasively. I see. Harper finished her coffee and began to gather her things. In that case, I'm afraid I can't help you. Wait! Griffin grabbed her arm. What do you want? Just say it. I want to return to Tech Fusion, Harper said clearly, with full control over DataSync and the decision on possible integration with other systems, and of course with appropriate compensation. What position? Griffin felt a chill run down his spine. I think you know the answer. Harper stared at him intently. Griffin slowly realized that she meant his position, the position of technical director. A position he had gotten thanks to family connections, not merit. A position for which, as was now becoming obvious, he lacked the necessary competence. At that moment, the phone rang again. Abbott. Yes, sir, Griffin replied, feeling himself go cold inside. Reed, we have another problem. Abbott's voice sounded almost panicked. Harrington Global just sent a notice of contract termination. We're losing 20% of our annual revenue. Griffin closed his eyes. Harrington Global was the company's oldest and largest client. Their departure meant not only financial losses, but also a serious blow to Tech Fusion's reputation. I'm working on a solution, he muttered. I'm meeting with Harper Kane right now. Do whatever you have to do, but get that system back up and running! Abbott shouted and hung up. Griffin slowly lowered the phone and looked at Harper. She watched him with a slight smile, as if she knew exactly what the conversation was about. More problems? She asked innocently. Harrington Global has terminated the contract, Griffin said, feeling the last remnants of pride leave him. We're losing all our clients. Not surprising, Harper nodded. Without a functioning data management system, a business can't operate, especially a business like Tech Fusion. Griffin finally began to understand the scale of the problem. This wasn't just a technical glitch that could be fixed in an hour or two. It was the complete collapse of the company's core product. A product he had so recklessly decided to replace without understanding its importance. And now the fate of Tech Fusion, his own career, and the jobs of dozens of employees all depended on the woman he had fired a week ago with the words, "We'll just replace you with someone cheaper." After the meeting at the Bluebird Cafe, Griffin returned to the Tech Fusion office with a heavy heart. The situation was getting worse by the minute. The company was losing customers, Abbott was demanding immediate results, and Harper refused to help without her conditions being met. Well? Abbott intercepted Griffin at the entrance. What did Kane say? She's willing to help, but she has conditions, Griffin replied, trying to sound calm. What are they? She wants to come back to work with a promotion and— I agree, Abbott interrupted. What else? Griffin took a deep breath. She wants the position of technical director. My position. Abbott froze, his face turning to stone. What? She won't return to any other position, Griffin continued, and only on that condition will she restore the system. That's blackmail, Abbott exclaimed. We can sue her. I'm afraid not, Griffin shook his head. I've consulted with lawyers. The patent for DataSync is actually hers. The company only has a license to use it, and the license says that the author is responsible for technical support. After she quit, we basically broke the terms of use. Abbott clenched his fists. So what do you suggest? Give her your job? I think it's the only way out. Either we agree to her terms or we lose all our customers and possibly the entire company. Abbott stared at him for a long time before speaking. "You realize you're asking me to fire your nephew?" "I do," Griffin replied quietly. "But the survival of Tech Fusion is at stake." Abbott ran his hand over his face. "It looks like we have no choice. Where is she now?" "At home. She said she would wait for our decision there." "Go to her," Abbott ordered. "Tell her we accept her terms, but first she must restore the system. And I want you to apologize to her personally. In public, in front of the whole team." Griffin felt his face flush. "A public apology?" "Yes, sir." "And Griffin," Abbott put his hand on his shoulder, "we'll find you another role in the company, something in sales or marketing." It was meant to be comforting, but it only intensified his sense of humiliation. From technical director to junior manager, a fall Griffin hadn't expected. "Thanks," he muttered and headed for the exit. Meanwhile, Harper sat on the couch in her apartment, staring into space. After meeting with Griffin, she should have felt triumphant, but instead she felt strangely confused. Her plan for revenge was working even better than she had expected. Tech Fusion was losing clients, Griffin was on the verge of being fired, and she was about to return to the company a winner. So why did she feel so awful? Her phone vibrated. A message from Noah. "2 more clients have threatened to terminate their contracts. Abbott is on the verge of a nervous breakdown. What's going on? Are you really not going to help?" Harper sighed. That was the problem. Her plan for revenge affected not only Griffin, but the entire company. All of her colleagues who were not at fault, Rachel, Jasper, Noah, people she had worked with for 3 years, people who could lose their jobs if Tech Fusion didn't survive. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Griffin Reed, pale and exhausted. She opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Mr. Reed." Harper crossed her arms over her chest. "You're quick." "Miss Kane." Griffin looked as if every word was a struggle. "We agree to your terms." "Really? All of them?" "Yes," Griffin swallowed. "You can return to Tech Fusion as Chief Technology Officer, with full control over DataSync and all related projects. What about TechSphere?" "The integration will be suspended until you decide," Griffin replied. "You will be able to conduct an independent technical analysis of their solution." "And compensation?" "A 20% raise in base salary, plus 2 months' salary in compensation for moral damages." Harper paused, considering his words. All her demands had been met. "And what about you, Mr. Reed?" Griffin met her gaze for the first time since the conversation began. "I'll be transferred to sales or marketing. Abbott can't fire me, I'm his nephew after all." Harper nodded. Typical nepotism. Even after such a failure, Griffin would remain in the company thanks to his family connections. "And one more thing," Griffin sighed deeply. "I have to apologize to you publicly, in front of the whole team." This was unexpected. A public apology meant complete admission of his mistake in front of his colleagues. For a man like Griffin, with his pride and self-importance, it was perhaps the most severe punishment. "Okay," Harper nodded. "I accept the terms." "Then you'll help restore the system?" "Yes, but first I want everything to be made official." Harper wasn't going to take any chances. "Prepare a new employment contract and a patent rights agreement. I'll sign them at the office and then restore DataSync." "But that will take time," Griffin looked concerned. "We don't have a minute to spare." "Then I suggest we work quickly," Harper smiled. "I'm sure the legal department can prepare everything you need in an hour if they're motivated." Griffin opened his mouth to object, but changed his mind. "Okay, I'll call the office and ask them to prepare the documents. Can we go together?" "I'll take my car. Meet me there in an hour." Griffin nodded and headed for his car. Harper closed the door and leaned against it. Her plan had worked perfectly, but for some reason she didn't feel satisfied. Only fatigue and a strange feeling of emptiness. Her phone vibrated again. This time it was her mother. "Hi, Mom," Harper replied wearily. "Harper, thank God you answered." Elaine's voice sounded agitated. "We're in a terrible situation." "What happened?" "It's Todd. He's been arrested." Harper froze. "What? When? For what?" "This morning," Elaine sobbed. "Something to do with fraud. He called from the police station and said he needed a lawyer. Harper, you have to help him." "Fraud? What did he do?" I don't know. He said it was some kind of misunderstanding, something to do with the startup he invested in. Please, Harper, you have to help him. We need money for a lawyer. Harper closed her eyes and slowly counted to 10. This was the last thing she needed right now. On the day of her triumphant return to Tech Fusion, her brother had managed to get himself into trouble with the police. How much? She finally asked. The lawyer asked for $10,000 for the initial consultation, Elaine replied. He specializes in economic crimes. 10,000? Mom, that's crazy. I can't. But it's Todd. Your brother. You can't abandon him in this situation. Harper sighed. Of course she couldn't. No matter how much her brother's irresponsibility infuriated her, she couldn't leave him without help. All right, she conceded. I'll find the money, but first I need to talk to Todd to understand what happened. Will they let you see him? I don't know, Harper replied honestly. But I'll try. I have an important meeting at the office right now that will determine whether I keep my job. As soon as it's over, I'll go to the police station. What meeting could be more important than your brother? Elaine exclaimed indignantly. The one that will determine whether I can earn enough money to pay for his lawyer, Harper replied sharply. I'll call you back later. She hung up without waiting for a response. Her head was starting to ache. Her carefully thought-out plan was now complicated by Todd's problems. She glanced at her watch. She had 20 minutes until her appointment at Tech Fusion. She needed to get ready and go. On the way to the office, Harper tried to figure out what was going on with her brother. She called the police station, but they only told her that Todd Kane had indeed been arrested on suspicion of fraud and was being questioned. No details. This worried Harper. Todd was irresponsible and often got into trouble, but he had never crossed the line. What could have happened? Her thoughts were interrupted by a call from Noah. Harper, where are you? His voice sounded tense. It's chaos here. 2 more clients have canceled their contracts, and Abbott has gathered everyone in the conference room and said he has an important announcement. I'm on my way. I'll be there in 5 minutes. What kind of announcement? I don't know, but Reed looks like he's being led to the guillotine. No surprise there. Harper couldn't hide a hint of satisfaction. You'll find out soon enough. Wait for me at the entrance. As she pulled up to the Tech Fusion office, Harper had mixed feelings. On the one hand, she felt the anticipation of triumph, but on the other, she was worried about her brother and felt a strange sense of emptiness. She parked the car, took a deep breath, and headed for the entrance where Noah was waiting for her. Thank God you're here, he exclaimed when he saw her. Everyone's waiting for you. For what? I have no idea. Noah shook his head. Abbott said he would make an important announcement concerning the future of the company as soon as you arrived. They went up to the conference room together. When Harper entered, all heads turned toward her. All of Tech Fusion's employees were gathered in the room. Abbott and Griffin, pale as a sheet, stood against the far wall. Ah, Miss Kane. Abbott stepped forward, extending his hand. Thank you for coming. We were just about to begin. Harper shook his hand, then found an empty seat and sat down. Noah sat down next to her, casting questioning glances around the room. Ladies and gentlemen, Abbott began, clearing his throat, I have an important announcement to make. As you know, our company has encountered serious technical problems today. DataSync, the system on which our entire business depends, has stopped functioning properly. A muffled whisper swept through the room. Abbott raised his hand, calling for silence. As a result, we have lost several key clients, including Harrington Global and a potential contract with Montgomery Industries. The situation is critical and requires immediate action. He paused, looking around at the assembled group. After careful analysis of the situation, I have decided to reorganize the technical department's management. Griffin Reed will be moving to the sales department as senior manager. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Everyone understood that this was effectively a demotion. And the new technical director of Tech Fusion will be Harper Kane. Harper, please stand up. Harper stood up, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room on her. Noah whistled silently beside her. Miss Kane has unique knowledge of our key system, Abbott continued. She developed DataSync and understands its architecture better than anyone else. I am confident that under her leadership, the technical department will reach new heights. The room erupted in applause. Many employees, especially those who worked with Harper, looked genuinely delighted with the news. And one more thing. Abbott turned to Griffin. Mr. Reed would like to say a few words. Griffin slowly stepped forward. He looked as if he would rather be anywhere but there. Colleagues, he began, his voice trembling slightly. I would like to take this opportunity to publicly apologize to Harper Kane. He turned to Harper, meeting her gaze. Miss Kane, I made a serious mistake in deciding to terminate your employment. I underestimated your role in the company and the importance of your work. Furthermore, he swallowed, clearly struggling to find the right words. I made an inappropriate comment about replacing you with someone cheaper. That was unprofessional and disrespectful. I sincerely apologize. The conference room fell silent. No one had expected such a frank apology. Harper felt all eyes on her, waiting for her response. She could have relished the moment, humiliating Griffin even more. But instead, she simply nodded. I accept your apology, Mr. Reed. I look forward to working with you professionally in the future. Griffin looked surprised. He had clearly expected a different reaction. Thank you, he muttered and quickly returned to his seat. Excellent. Abbott clapped his hands. Now for the most important thing. Miss Kane, will you be able to restore data sync? Yes, Harper replied confidently. First, I need access to the server room and the system administrator passwords. Whatever you need, Abbott nodded. Mark from IT will show you in and give you all the access you need. After the meeting, Harper was accompanied by Mark to the server room. On the way, Noah intercepted her. You planned this, didn't you? He asked quietly. Shutting down the system, causing panic, and making a triumphant return. Harper smiled. Let's just say I was prepared for data sync to go down after I left. Brilliant, but harsh. Many people could have lost their jobs if the company had continued to lose customers. The remark made Harper frown. Noah was right. In her quest for revenge, she had risked the well-being of many people. I had the situation under control, she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. And you wouldn't have let her go too far. In the server room, Harper quickly logged into the DataSync administration system. With just a few keystrokes, she entered the new license key. The system responded instantly, and all the indicators lit up green. That's it? Mark asked incredulously. Just enter a new key? That's right, Harper confirmed. The system works on a periodic activation principle. Without a valid key, it gradually disables functions. She checked the main functions of the system. Everything worked flawlessly, as if there had been no problems at all. Now we need to contact the customers, let them know that the system is back up and running smoothly. When Mark left, Harper remained alone in the server room. She stared at the monitors displaying the status of various data sync modules and felt a strange emptiness. She had won. She had gotten everything she wanted: the job, the recognition, the apology. But victory did not bring the satisfaction she had expected. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A message from Elaine. The lawyer agreed to meet with Todd. We need the money today. When will you be there? Reality reared its ugly head once again. Harper sighed. Her plan for revenge had been successfully executed, but her problems were only just beginning. Now she not only had to return to work in her new position, but also deal with her brother's troubles. She replied to her mother that she would come as soon as she finished at the office and focused on the system again. She had to check all the modules to make sure there were no hidden problems. There was a knock on the server room door. To Harper's surprise, it was Griffin Reed. May I come in? He shifted uncertainly from foot to foot. Of course, Harper nodded, without looking up from the monitor. Griffin entered and stopped at a respectful distance. Is the system back up? Yes, everything's working. Have you contacted the clients yet? Victor is on it. There's hope we can get Montgomery Industries back. They haven't signed the contract with the competition yet. Harrington Global is more complicated, but it's not a lost cause. Harper nodded and continued working. Griffin paused, clearly gathering his thoughts. I wanted to apologize again. Not for public consumption, but to you personally. I really did make a mistake, and I regret it. Harper looked up from her monitor and looked at him. Griffin looked sincere, which was unexpected. "Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that we'll probably never have a normal working relationship, but I want you to know that I respect your professionalism and recognize that you deserve this position." Harper raised an eyebrow in surprise. "That's unexpected. Thank you." Monday morning began unusually for Tech Fusion employees, with a town hall meeting called by Owen Abbott. By 8:30 a.m., everyone had gathered in the conference room. The atmosphere was filled with anticipation and curiosity. After Friday's crisis, when DataSync stopped working and the company lost several key clients, everyone was wondering, what next? Harper Kane was the last to enter the room, holding a folder of documents in her hands. She looked confident and composed, not at all like she had on Friday when she was frantically trying to get the system back up and running. Now she was ready for the next stage of her career. Owen Abbott, standing at the far wall next to Griffin Reed, nodded to her and began the meeting. "Good morning, colleagues." His voice sounded energetic despite the tension of the past weekend. "First of all, I have some good news. Most of our clients, including Montgomery Industries, have decided to continue working with us. Unfortunately, Harrington Global has not yet responded, but negotiations are ongoing." A sigh of relief swept through the room. After Friday's nightmare, many had feared the worst. "As you know, on Friday we encountered a serious technical problem that could have cost us our business," Abbott continued. "Thanks to the quick action of our new technical director, Harper Kane, the crisis has been averted. Harper, thank you again." Everyone turned to Harper. She nodded in acknowledgement but said nothing. "Today, I would like to formally introduce you to the company's new management structure." Abbott cleared his throat. "Harper Kane is taking over as Chief Technology Officer with full control over our key technologies, including DataSync. Griffin Reed is moving to the position of Director of Business Development, where his experience and industry connections will be most useful." Griffin stood next to Abbott, his expression neutral. After Friday's public humiliation, when he had to apologize to Harper in front of the entire company, he kept to the shadows. The new position was an obvious attempt by Abbott to save his nephew's face. "That's all I have. Any questions?" Abbott looked around the room. "What about TechSphere?" someone from the technical department asked. "Are we continuing with the integration?" Abbott looked at Harper. "Miss Kane, perhaps you could answer that." Harper stepped forward. "After careful analysis of the TechSphere solution, I have concluded that it does not meet our technical requirements," she said confidently and professionally. "The integration has been suspended indefinitely. Instead, we will focus on developing DataSync, which has proven its effectiveness and reliability." Griffin visibly tensed up. TechSphere was his project, his way of proving himself, and now that project was shut down. "Is there a plan for developing DataSync?" Noah Finch asked. "Yes," Harper nodded. "I will present a complete development strategy in the coming days. New modules are planned, along with improvements to the user interface and performance optimization. I ask all technical specialists to prepare their suggestions and ideas for improving the system." After the meeting, when the employees dispersed to their workplaces, Harper headed to her new office, the one that Griffin had previously occupied. Upon entering, she paused at the doorway. The room already looked different. The expensive, decorative elements that Griffin had used to impress people were gone. Now it was a functional workspace with minimal furniture and maximum technological equipment. "Like it?" Noah appeared behind her. "I helped it set up the equipment to your specifications." "Perfect," Harper smiled, stepping inside. "Thanks, Noah. I have to admit it's impressive." Noah closed the door and sat down on the edge of the desk. "The whole plan with shutting down the system, coming back on a white horse. You have no idea what chaos was going on here on Friday." "I can imagine," Harper sighed, sitting down in a chair. "And, to be honest, I'm not proud of it. I risked the well-being of the company and all the employees for personal revenge." "But it worked," Noah shrugged. "And if you look at it another way, you saved the company from incompetent management and a questionable merger with TechSphere." "Maybe." Harper leaned back in her chair. "But the end doesn't always justify the means. I could have found a more ethical way. What matters is that you're here now where you belong, Noah smiled. And the team is happy. Everyone was shocked by your dismissal. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. Noah got up and opened it. Griffin Reed was standing in the doorway. Miss Kane, can I talk to you? He looked tense but maintained his composure. Of course, Mr. Reed, Harper nodded. Noah, we'll finish later. Noah shot Griffin a warning glance and left. Reed closed the door and remained standing a few steps away from the desk. I wanted to apologize again for everything that happened, he began. And thank you for your professionalism. You could have made this much more difficult for me, but you chose not to. I don't see the point in further humiliation, Mr. Reed, Harper replied calmly. We are colleagues, after all. Griffin nodded in agreement. I'd also like to clear up the situation with TechSphere, he continued. I understand that you don't see the technical value in the integration, but we had certain agreements. I was hoping we could find a compromise. Harper looked at him intently. What agreements? Griffin paused, apparently weighing how candid to be. Personal connections, he finally said. My former boss at NextGen Solutions chairs the board of directors at TechSphere. He promised to support my career. I see, Harper nodded. And you need to save face. Not just me. Griffin looked genuinely concerned. This situation could affect Tech Fusion's business reputation. We did announce the partnership publicly. Harper thought about it. Griffin was right. A sudden termination of the partnership could negatively affect the company's image. All right, she finally said. Here's what I can offer. We won't integrate TechSphere into our core system, but we can consider a limited partnership in non-critical areas. For example, using their module for a mobile app. That would allow us to keep the partnership on paper without risking our core business. Griffin visibly relaxed. That would be perfect. Thank you. You're welcome. Harper stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. By the way, congratulations on your new position. Director of Business Development sounds impressive. Griffin smiled faintly. We both know it's just Abbott's attempt to save his nephew's face, but I'll try to live up to the trust. And you'll probably do better than you did on the technical side, Harper remarked without malice. You're a good salesperson, and you know how to build relationships. Those are valuable skills in the right role. Griffin looked at her with unexpected gratitude. Thanks. That means more to me than you know. When he left, Harper stared at the closed door for a long time. Strangely, she felt no malice or triumph, only relief that the conflict had been resolved relatively peacefully and that everyone could now do what they were really good at. The rest of the day was spent in a series of meetings and conversations. Harper met with every member of the technical team, discussed current projects, and listened to suggestions for improving data sync. By the end of the workday, she had a clear idea of how to move forward. As she was about to leave, Harper remembered her brother. After everything that had happened at Tech Fusion, she had temporarily put Todd's problems on the back burner. Now she needed to deal with that too. She dialed her mother's number. Hi, Mom. How's Todd? Harper! Elaine's voice sounded agitated. Thank God you called. Todd is still at the police station. He's been charged with financial fraud. What exactly happened? Harper asked, sitting back down in her chair. That startup he invested in. It turned out to be a pyramid scheme. Todd says he didn't know, but the police think he's an accomplice because he brought in new investors. Harper sighed. Typical Todd. Act first, think later. What does the lawyer say? He met with Todd today, Elaine replied. He says there's a chance if we can prove that Todd was himself a victim of fraud, but that requires money for an independent financial investigation. How much? 15,000. Elaine's voice trembled. Harper, I don't know where to get that kind of money. Harper closed her eyes and slowly counted to 10. 15,000 was significantly more than she had expected, but with her new salary as technical director and compensation for emotional distress. All right, she said finally. I'll find the money, but on one condition. What's that? Elaine asked, wary. When Todd gets out of this mess, and I'm sure he will, he has to find a normal job. No more startups or dubious investments. And he'll pay me back gradually. Not you, Mom. Harper emphasized. But me. That's non-negotiable. There was silence on the line. Mom? I understand, Elaine finally said. You're right. Todd has to start taking responsibility for his actions. I'll talk to him about it. Harper was surprised. Usually, her mother defended Todd at all costs, excusing his irresponsibility. Perhaps her son's arrest was the wake-up call she had been refusing to acknowledge for so long. Thank you, Mom, Harper said softly. I'll stop by the police station tomorrow and talk to the lawyer. After her conversation with her mother, Harper sat in her office for a while, looking out the window at Lawrence in the evening. In the last few days, her life had changed completely. From a fired employee planning revenge, she had become a technical director with complete control over the development of the company's key product. Even her relationship with her family seemed to be changing for the better. The phone rang again. This time it was Owen Abbott. Miss Kane, I would like to invite you to dinner to discuss the company's development strategy. His voice sounded formal but friendly. How about Wednesday evening? I'd be delighted, Mr. Abbott, Harper replied. Would 7 o'clock be convenient for you? Perfect. I'll send you the restaurant's address. See you then, Miss Kane. Hanging up, Harper smiled. Despite all the complications and unethical methods she had used, the result was positive. Now she had the opportunity to implement her ideas, develop DataSync in the direction she thought was right, and receive a decent reward for it. The next day, Harper kept her promise and visited the police station where Todd was being held. The meeting with her brother was emotional. Todd looked exhausted and frightened, but when he saw his sister, hope appeared in his eyes. Harper, he said quietly, avoiding her gaze. Thank you for coming. I know I messed up again. Yes, you did. Harper didn't sugarcoat it. But I'll help you get out of here, on one condition. What is it? Todd finally looked at her. When this is over, you'll find a real job. And you'll pay me back little by little. This isn't a gift, Todd. It's a loan that needs to be repaid. Her brother was silent for a long time, then nodded. I understand. And I agree. No more startups or get-rich-quick schemes, I promise. Good. Harper took a check for $15,000 out of her bag. I already talked to your lawyer. He thinks you have a good chance, especially if you can prove that you were the victim of fraud. They'll start the financial investigation tomorrow. Thanks. Todd looked genuinely grateful. I don't know what I did to deserve a sister like you. You didn't, Harper replied honestly. It just happened that way. But this time, Todd, I mean it. This is the last time I'm getting you out of trouble. Her brother nodded, and Harper saw something in his eyes that she hadn't seen in many years: determination and responsibility. Back at the office, Harper immersed herself in her work. There was a lot to do: developing DataSync, strengthening their market position, and winning back lost customers. But now she had all the resources and authority she needed to tackle these tasks. By the end of the week, it was clear that the situation with Todd would be resolved positively. A financial investigation confirmed that he was the victim of fraud, not an accomplice. He was to be released in the coming days. On Friday, exactly 1 week after the dramatic events that led to the shutdown of DataSync, Harper gathered the technical team in the conference room. I want to present to you the development plan for DataSync for the next 6 months, she began, standing in front of the screen with the presentation. We will implement new analytics modules, improve the user interface, and significantly increase system performance. This will allow us not only to win back lost customers, but also to attract new ones. The team listened attentively, and Harper saw in her colleagues' eyes what had been missing before: genuine respect and a willingness to follow a leader who knew what she was doing. After the presentation, Noah approached her. Impressive plan, he smiled. I'm sure it will work. Thanks, Harper nodded. But its implementation will depend on the whole team. I'm counting on you, Noah, especially when it comes to testing the new modules. Always ready, Noah saluted jokingly. By the way, the guys and I are going to celebrate your promotion tonight. Will you join us? Harper thought about it. She usually avoided such events, preferring to spend her evenings at home working. But now it was a new beginning, not only in her career, but also in her relationships with her colleagues, her family, and herself. I'd love to, she replied with a smile. Where are we going? That evening, sitting in a cozy bar with her colleagues, Harper felt different than usual. More relaxed, more happy. Maybe it was because she had achieved her goal. Maybe it was because she realized her own worth and competence. Or maybe it was because she felt like she belonged to a team that respected her not out of fear, but because she truly deserved it. Her phone vibrated. A message from Todd. I've been released on bail. The expert opinion worked. Thanks, sis. I promise I won't let you down this time. I already have a job offer at an IT company in a neighboring town. I'll start small, but I'll work my way up. And I'll pay you back every penny. Harper smiled as she read the message. Perhaps his arrest was the push her brother needed to grow up and start taking responsibility for his actions. Good news? Noah asked, noticing her smile. Yes, Harper nodded. My brother seems to be finally on the right track. Glad to hear it, Noah said, raising his glass. Here's to new beginnings, Harper Kane, CTO of Tech Fusion and savior of wayward brothers. Everyone at the table joined in the toast, and Harper, clinking glasses with her colleagues, caught herself feeling genuine joy and satisfaction with her life for the first time in a long time. Yes, the methods she had used to achieve her goal were not the most ethical, but the result, justice for her, a better future for the company, and perhaps a new start for her brother, justified the means. On her way home, Harper stopped at the window of her office at Tech Fusion. The lights were off, but the reflection of the city in the glass created the illusion of countless bright stars scattered in the darkness. She placed her hand on the cool glass and said quietly, "Thanks for the warning, Mr. Reed. It was very helpful." Then, smiling at her reflection, Harper headed for the elevator. A new beginning lay ahead, both in her career and in her personal life, and she was ready for it like never before.